Now we can focus on a more practical example. What we're going to do here is now combine everything that we learned so far from the topology series, edge flow and supportive edges, and just combine it here in this little project. What we have here is again a very simple object, and our assignment is going to be to maintain these corners on a subdivision, meaning that once we subdivide this object, that we maintain the corners and that they still look sharp as they do here. All right, now as a small breakdown, what we're going to do, we're going to start with supportive edges. Then we're going to make sure that we have even distribution of polygons, meaning again that they should look more like a grid like this and not so widely spread like we currently have right here. And then we're going to make sure that our topology has a right flow. And again, just a small reminder. So let me just add here something. Maybe black. And as a small reminder, every object has its flow, meaning that this is the direction of the flow of our object. And if we pretend, let's say that there's a gravity to this border, meaning that our structural edges have gravity. Okay, let me just again turn this black. All right, so if this has a gravity like this, and this has a gravity like this, and this here, and this here. So basically, what I'm trying to say that let's say that we are walking on the inner side of the object. This is how the gravity would behave. So if you're walking here, this is where our head is pointing. And if you're walking here, this is where our head is pointing. And wherever our head is pointing, that is the direction of the edges that they should flow. And if we come here in the corner, again, if this is like a top of the mountain, then again, this is the flow of the edges. And typically what we want only one edge where we're standing, because when only we can occupy that space and nobody else. So let's say that there's one other person here that cannot be, we are the only ones that can occupy this. So that means that we need to solve this edge away. So this is just what I mean by topology, and that this is going to be our main guide just as a small reminder of what we did in the topology series. All right, so let's then start with adding supportive edges. So what I'm going to do is just add a small offset here, like this, and then let's extrude this outside, and let's add one more cut. And basically now we have our supportive edges, and this is our start. So now we can notice how this object is behaving on a subdivision, meaning that all of these corners are breaking apart instead that they are standing in their place. So what we need to do now is we need to organize these corners so that they do not break on the subdivision. And again, for simplicity's sake, I will just remove the extrusion and work only on a flat surface. All right, so what we talked about before is that we can actually redirect these edges like this, and that they will give us a sharper corner. So if I remove this, you will already see that we have a sharp corner there. So let's do the same thing here. We can redirect this one, and we can redirect this one. All right, and actually we cannot redirect this one. This is something that we cannot do, because we're going to get a lot of strange artifacts here, and because you will see that this is actually a reversed polygon. It's folding on itself inside. So this is something that we cannot do. What we can do is this, but we cannot do something like that. So what we need is a different solution for this area. All right, so let's just check what we have here. So let me just extrude this, subdivide, and actually here now I have still this left. We can add support, and let's just preview. I will turn the wireframe off. So far so good. So we now have this corner sharp, and the only thing that is left is this corner. There's one thing here I would like to mention, is that sometimes depending how close this edge is, this corner might appear very, very sharp. So in order to avoid that, what we can do is we can also try and keep an eye on the distance, meaning that we don't have to have super close area that we can also slide it maybe, and you will see that we'll get more curve there on this corner. So again, just something to keep in mind on. And let me just go a couple of steps back, and actually I can just remove this and this as well. So before we continue, actually, I would like to talk about one more thing. What if, let's say that now you need loop here on the inside, and you can notice that we cannot add that loop anymore, and it's just only one dimensional, meaning that it has only one direction, and this is direction and this direction and this. It's not forming that loop anymore. So if I bring this edge back, I just want to show you what I mean. And I will just delete this as well. And let me bring this edge back as well. So just we are now experimenting a bit. All right, so this is the loop. And let's say that I need this loop. And for some reason, let's say that I want to have a detail with this loop and I need it. And because I need this loop, that means that I need this corner as well. And because I need this corner, I'm getting this soft result. So how to work around that and how to still maintain the loop here and have a sharp corner? Well, what we can do is let's pretend that this didn't happen, so that this doesn't exist. We can now use the second. Basically what I'm trying to say is that in order for this situation to work, we need a supportive loop for this loop as well. And easiest way is to add one in the middle, or for simplicity's sake, we can add one on the outside, or if you wish, you can just offset everything here and add one on the inside. It will just depend where actually you need it. But if you want to maintain a sharp corner here and still have this as a edge, that means that your original support loop needs one more support loop. And here's why. So if we now pretend, like we did before, that this is our, let's say, corner, and we need to sharpen it up, we would do this. So if you now see what we did here, we now have the same corner like we did before, but with an extension. And basically that extension allows us to maintain our loop while still having a sharp corner. And basically that is all. And if you look even more closer, so let me just show even more. What is happening here is that we have our 3-to-1 connection. So if there would be an edge here, like this would be now 3 that edges forming a 1. So basically this is again that same thing. And also what is a plus side about this, as you can notice, is that you can actually select how much of a sharpness you want here. Do you want to have sharp corner or not as sharp? All right, so now we can go ahead and actually continue and create the corners one more time. And let's do the same thing here. And let's now delete this. And let's now try and do the same thing here, but again, the same thing, it's not working. Because again, the problem is that we have this angle and this angle here, and this simply will not work for us because it might look fine, but in general, these are the connections that we are trying to avoid, simply because this is looking more like a reversed polygon, and yeah, this is something that we are not using. If this would be something like this, let's say as a polygon, okay, but this connection, it's not working. So for this corner, we need to find a different solution. So let's remove that and everything else can stay. All right, so now that we have a supportive edges dealt with, now we can continue and work on the inner side. So first thing that I like to do is I like to clean up the geometry, meaning that let's say that we have something like this. That just means that the more geometry we now add, you see that it's becoming more and more messier. That just means that if we start with messy geometry, the trend is going to continue on the other edges that we add. So we'll just keep it very, very clean from the beginning. And I'm going to just straighten this edge like so. Also, what I want to show you is that if you have, let's say, an edge that it's like this, and if you want to straighten it up, you can select it. And then with the shift control, you can slide it like so. Or like we just did it here, you can connect it with the multi-cut, let's say from point to point, and then just delete the extra. And that's how you can straighten up some of the edges. All right, so now that we have that, let's populate it now with even more edges to create even distribution. Like so. And if we can already notice, now everything is getting a bit more easier to work with because we have already clean enough geometry and we have sorted out our edges, and the only thing now that is left is to solve this problem here. So basically it's not a problem, but it just needs to be a harder edge here. All right, so when we talked about how the topology flows, and if we pretend that this is the center of the gravity, that we stand here and our head is pointing this direction and the two edges cannot occupy the same space, we need to just then redirect it in the same way that we were, let's say our head is pointing. And then basically these edges we would need to redirect. So basically this edge needs to be redirected from this point just here. So it's the same situation we talked about before. And we just redirect it, let's say to here. And now when we subdivide, now we have a nice corner here, nice corner here, and we can easily control with the edges how much of a sharpness do we want to have on that corner. And basically, yeah, we are done here. So the final thing that is missing is we can select everything and add thickness. And let's add 2 divisions because that will give us this supportive loop. And we are finished here. So our assignment is complete. One more thing maybe worth mentioning is that you can also use deformers to check how your mesh would perform on curve. So let's say we can use bend, and I'm gonna just turn it on just to see in which direction is it facing to. All right, so let's say now we can check how our mesh is looking, and in general it's looking fine. I can see only small highlight here, so I don't know if you can notice. In general there is no pinching, our topology is correct, everything looks fine. There's just this small little shading here. So this can happen with the bend deformer and deformers in general, that they just stretch your geometry. But also it can happen if your, let's say, spread is uneven. So for now we have fairly even spread. We can maybe tighten it up even more and just organize it even more. Come slide here, let's say, just fine tune it a bit. But this can also be a very finicky task. So if you want to play with that, feel free to do it. But I would say that this is just fine for now. One more thing also what we can do is we can also double check and actually see if our topology has correct flow. And again, if we check, let me just actually undo here a couple of steps because I think I'm going to leave it as it is. We can go here and again, just to remind what we did before. So let me turn the wireframe on as well. So this is the flow of the shape. So it's flowing in this direction. That just means that this should be also the flow of our edges. And now we can see, let's say here, that the edge flow will not go in that direction. And again, what I wanted to mention is that again, if we, let's say, walk here and then walk here, this should be the direction of the edges. So let me just also show you one more thing what to do in that case. Let me just clean up here. And what I will do is just connect this to here and remove this part just so that maybe it's easier to understand. All right, so basically what we're looking for is, let's say that we need an edge loop here. So basically we need a flow like this, because for now you can see that our flow is totally different. And let me just remove this for now. And again, we can talk about it a bit more. What if I would like to have my flow here? So basically what I want to have is this as my flow. And I will know that I have it because if I double click, it will go in that direction. For now, it's not. And we can clearly see that it's not. So basically that just means that we would need a cut here. And since we need a cut here, that means that these two edges are extra. And again, how we know that these two edges are extra? Well, simple. It will be the same thing if you remember here when we were doing redirection. If I added here, that means that these edges are extra. So it's, again, same situation to that very, very basic thing. It just looks a bit deformed, but it's the same thing. So this is now extra, this is now extra, because now we have, again, this. And if I now double click here, now we have that flow. So it will, again, depend on the situation, what you want and when you want specific flows. But if I'm not using, let's see, if I don't want the detail here, then I can also leave it as it was before, like this. So it really, for us in this moment, it doesn't matter. But let's say that we would want to have a detail across, then we would definitely need to redirect this part. But if we would, let's say, want to have a detail later, like here, this flow like so, then that is fine. So yeah, it will just depend on the situation. But as long as we know how to manipulate the edges, we can also then manipulate the situation in our favor. So for now, everything looks fine and in order. So yeah, I hope that this made sense. And if it didn't, feel free again to ask in the comment section down below and I will try to answer. And I will provide this as a project file for you to practice, so you can also follow along and try out different situations and just see what kind of results you can get out of it. All right, so let's close this video. Let's go to another example. So thank you very much for watching and I'll see you next time.